Juan Zarate is the senior national security analyst for CBS News. Juan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It has been 24 hours. No claim of responsibility now from any terrorist group. And these are guys that they'll claim responsibility for something they haven't done.
Right.
So what should we make of this?
It's curious, actually, because you saw after the downing of the Metrojet, the Russian airliner out of the Sinai, ISIS laid claim pretty quickly. There was a little bit of a delay fairly quickly. But you're right. Most terrorist groups, ISIS, Al-Qaeda affiliates, tend to proclaim the event for propaganda value. What this could suggest is maybe the terrorist groups are trying to figure out what happened themselves. This may not have been something pre-planned. And I think one of the dangerous scenarios or hypotheses here is that you had some small group of individuals who organized on their own, were able to learn the techniques of bomb making on their own, online. The information's out there. And the potential that they circumvented security and perpetrated this. And then terrorist groups are trying to figure it out. That's one theory. Another is they're just waiting for the right moment. They're waiting for wreckage to be found. They're waiting for the right propaganda value to then put out a statement. The third theory is it wasn't terrorism at all. And again, they're trying to figure out the news just like everybody else. And so those are some ways of thinking about it. But clearly, if this was terrorism, you would expect that a terrorist group would lay claim to it.
Well, investigators haven't ruled out terrorism. And if it indeed is an act of terrorism, what does that say about aviation security across the globe?
Well, it's a really dangerous moment because you've had a series of incidents recently. You had the downing of the Metrojet liner out of the Sinai, and ISIS explained how they did that. You had the Somalia Mogadishu event with the hole blown open in the fuselage. Fortunately, that wasn't down, but certainly an experiment. And we know that Al-Qaeda and ISIS have both been experimenting with new technologies. The Al-Qaeda group in Syria, called the Khorasan group, the senior group, had been experimenting with non-metallic substances. And of course, we know that the Al-Qaeda bomb maker out of Yemen, Ibrahim al-Asiri, has been innovating for years, including with the underwear bomb, the package plot. You remember that?
Yes.
And so these are groups that have been trying to innovate. And what this suggests, if it is terrorism, is that they continue to find gaps in the system. And the aviation sector is dictated by a system. And if you have a weak link in the system, that puts the entire system at risk.
Kind of like a virus, you know? It just keeps coming at you from a different angle.
We know that the plane was scanned in Paris. Charles de Gaulle Airport, it's high alert right now, right? Things are very, very sensitive. This is probably as secure as the airport is ever going to be. Are airlines and airplanes just inherently vulnerable? Is there almost no way to secure an airliner? And I'm thinking about the number of people who, I think there's thousands of people who had security passes at Charles de Gaulle, and they managed to take away several dozen from people who they thought might, you know, be sympathetic to terrorist cause. I mean, is there any way to really secure something as large as an airport and an airplane?
Well, it's hard to fully protect an open system of any sort, whether it's transportation at large, whether it's aviation. The good news is we've been able to harden aircraft security over time and create rings of security and technology around that, and have been much better about the potential of an insider threat, for example, which is what the French were worried about when they withdrew the security clearances of those officials on the ground who had access to aircraft. So the answer is, unfortunately, nothing is 100% foolproof. If it's an open system and where it's complex, and when you need fluidity in the system, right? You need the system to work. You can't lock it down. Otherwise, it's going to be inefficient.
Look what's happening in Chicago, right? People don't like that. They're missing their planes.
Exactly. So there's nothing perfect, but what you try to do is create layers of security that not only protect, but also deter. And that's why you see a lot of the measures that the airlines have put in place, TSA's put in place, and you try to forward deploy, which is what the Department of Homeland Security has been trying to do over time, so that you don't allow things to hit the United States. You try to vet, secure, assess abroad, and that's what they're trying to do.
I know, and as quickly as you can, explain to us, why target an EgyptAir? I know a lot of people are asking that question. No Americans on board, some Europeans, but why target an airline such as that?
Well, this is one of the factors that I think lends itself to a theory that there was some terrorism involved, because Paris and France and Egypt and Cairo, these are mortal enemies of terrorist groups, the jihadi groups, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and others. Egypt has been in an ongoing battle with ISIS in the Sinai. One of ISIS's important provinces is in the Sinai. And in fact, just this past month, ISIS put out propaganda promoting that affiliate, saying, look, we've been successful with the downing of the Russian aircraft. We've been successful in attacking naval forces of Egypt. We've attacked their security services, and there's a battle underway. And they realize there's also political tension in Egypt, just like in Paris and France. And so one of the challenges here is, and questions is, are these groups targeting France and Egypt in part because these are real enemies for them in a broader global war? That's what makes this suspicious as well.
And Egypt is a Muslim nation, or largely Muslim nation, so it's a point to make bare that enemies don't, it's not just a religious battle, it's fundamentally something beyond that.
Absolutely.
Right?
There's a battle within Islam, there's a battle for territory, you see this with the safe havens, and there's a battle for governance. Who's going to govern these spaces? And clearly, President Sisi is at war with these terrorist groups. They're at war with him. This may be evidence of that.
Point to be made.
Juan Zarate, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.